What happens when a perfectly seaworthy ship is found floating empty in the vast Atlantic Ocean, with hot food still on the table and not a single soul aboard? Welcome to SherlockMode. The year is 1872, November 7th. The morning mist clings to New York Harbor like ghostly fingers as the merchant ship Mary Celeste prepares for what would become the most famous voyage in maritime history. Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs stands on the deck, a respected seaman with 37 years of life behind him. His weathered hands grip the ship's rail as he watches the final preparations. This is no ordinary voyage. Beside him stands his beloved wife Sarah, 30 years old, and their precious 2-year-old daughter Sophia. The little girl clutches her favorite doll, unaware she is about to vanish from history forever. 7 trusted crew members complete the ship's company. First mate Albert Richardson, second mate Andrew Gilling, and 5 seasoned sailors. 10 souls in total, sailing toward an impossible mystery. In the cargo hold below, 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol wait in the darkness. Industrial-grade spirits, poisonous to drink, highly flammable, and worth a fortune in the Italian port of Genoa. The Mary Celeste herself is a beauty. 282 tons of Canadian craftsmanship, built as the Amazon in Nova Scotia 11 years earlier. 30 meters of sturdy wood and iron, designed to conquer the Atlantic. But this ship carries more than cargo. She carries a curse. From her very first voyage, death and disaster have followed in her wake. Her original captain died of pneumonia before completing the maiden voyage. Later, she collided with another vessel in the English Channel. Then a storm drove her ashore at Cape Breton, leaving her a broken wreck on the rocks. Yet somehow, she survived, rebuilt, and renamed. As morning turns to afternoon on November 7th, the Mary Celeste slips her moorings and heads into the open Atlantic. Captain Briggs has no idea he is steering toward immortality. The first 2 weeks pass without incident. The Mary Celeste battles through heavy weather, her sturdy hull cutting through mountainous waves. In the captain's cabin, Sarah Briggs tends to little Sophia while her husband navigates by candlelight. November 24th. The ship's log records their position. Latitude 35 degrees 56 minutes north. Longitude 27 degrees 20 minutes west. The Azores Islands lie ahead like sleeping giants in the ocean. The weather turns violent. Storm conditions rage over the Azores as the Mary Celeste fights through the tempest. Her sails strain against the howling wind. Below deck, the cargo barrels shift and groan with each massive wave. November 25th, 8 o'clock in the morning. The final entry appears in the ship's log. The island of Santa Maria bears east-southeast. It would be the last words ever written aboard the Mary Celeste. Then silence. For 9 days, the Mary Celeste sails on through the Atlantic darkness. But she no longer carries her human cargo. She has become a ghost ship, sailing herself through the endless blue. December 4th. For 100 miles east of the Azores, Captain David Morehouse of the British brigantine deigratia spots something strange on the horizon. A ship sailing erratically, her sails poorly set, moving like a drunken sailor. Morehouse knows the ship. He had dined with Captain Briggs in New York just weeks before. They had shared stories and rum in a waterfront tavern, planning their separate voyages to the Mediterranean. Something is terribly wrong. The Mary Celeste should have reached Genoa days ago. Instead, she drifts aimlessly in the wrong direction, heading west when she should be sailing east. Morehouse orders his ship closer. Through his telescope, he sees no movement on the Mary Celeste's deck. No crew, no passengers, no signs of life. The ship appears to be sailing herself. He calls out across the water. His voice echoes over the waves, but receives no answer. Only the sound of wind in the rigging and the splash of waves against the hull. Morehouse makes a fateful decision. He launches a small boat with his first mate and second mate. They row across the gap between the ships, each stroke bringing them closer to one of history's greatest mysteries. The boarding party climbs aboard the Mary Celeste. Their footsteps echo on the empty deck. The first thing they notice is the silence. Not the normal silence of a resting ship, but the absolute silence of abandonment. The ship's rigging hangs loose and damaged. Ropes trail in the water. The compass housing is smashed and overturned. 2 of the 3 cargo hatches stand open, their covers scattered on the deck. But where is everyone? The boarding party calls out, but their voices disappear into the empty spaces below deck. They draw their knives, fearing pirates or worse might be hiding in the shadows. They descend into the cargo hold. The smell of alcohol fumes hits them immediately. Several barrels have leaked their contents, creating a volatile mixture that could explode at any moment. 3.5 feet of water sloshes in the ship's bottom. Not enough to sink her, but enough to cause concern. One of the ship's pumps has been completely disassembled, its parts scattered about. The galley is pristine. Pots and pans hang neatly in their places. There is no food being prepared, no signs of interrupted meals. Everything is clean and orderly, as if the crew simply vanished mid-task. In the crew quarters, personal belongings remain untouched. Clothes hang in their proper places. Sea chests contain treasured possessions. No sailor would abandon such precious items unless facing immediate mortal danger. The boarding party enters the captain's cabin with growing dread. What they discover makes their blood run cold. The cabin is wet and disheveled. Papers are scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. Captain Briggs's navigational instruments are missing. The ship's official papers have vanished. But the logbook remains, lying open on the chart table like a silent witness to the mystery. They search for Sarah and little Sophia. In the family quarters, they find the child's toys scattered about. An impression on the bed shows where the little girl once slept. But the family has vanished as completely as morning mist. The most chilling discovery waits on deck. The ship's lifeboat is gone. The davits that held it swing empty in the Atlantic breeze. 10 souls have taken to the open ocean in a small boat. But why? The Mary Celeste is seaworthy. She has 6 months of food and water aboard. Her cargo is worth a fortune. What could drive an experienced captain to abandon such a valuable ship? The boarding party finds no signs of violence. No blood, no weapons, no evidence of struggle. It is as if the crew and passengers simply decided to step off the ship and disappear into the vast Atlantic. Captain Morehouse faces a decision. Under maritime law, he can claim salvage rights to the abandoned vessel. But first, he must get both ships safely to port. He splits his crew between the 2 vessels. The journey to Gibraltar takes 8 days. 2 ships sailing in formation across the winter Atlantic. One with a living crew, the other sailing as a ghost ship guided by dead men's hands. December 12th, Gibraltar Harbor. The British authorities take immediate interest in the Mary Celeste. Such mysteries do not often sail into their port. An investigation begins immediately. The Attorney General, Frederick Flood, suspects foul play. His arrogant manner and suspicious nature lead him to believe that Captain Morehouse and his crew are hiding something dark and terrible. Flood's theories grow wild and dangerous. He suggests mutiny, murder, conspiracy. Perhaps the crew got drunk on the alcohol cargo and killed their captain. Perhaps pirates attacked and murdered everyone aboard. Investigators discover what appears to be blood on the captain's sword and on the ship's rail. The mystery deepens. Has the Mary Celeste witnessed murder on the high seas? But science reveals the truth. Under the microscope, the suspicious stains prove to be nothing more than rust and fruit juice. Someone had cleaned the sword with lemon, and the acid had created the mysterious marks. The damage to the ship's bow, initially blamed on axes and violence, proves to be normal wear from the Atlantic crossing. The ocean itself had carved those mysterious marks. One by one, Flood's theories crumble like sandcastles before the tide. The evidence points not to murder, but to something far more mysterious. A voluntary abandonment with no clear reason. After 3 months of investigation, the Gibraltar court admits defeat. They find no evidence of wrongdoing. Captain Morehouse receives a small salvage payment, and the Mary Celeste is released. The mystery ship continues her voyage to Genoa, where her cargo of alcohol is finally delivered. But the story of her abandonment has only just begun to capture the world's imagination. 12 years later, a young doctor named Arthur Conan Doyle publishes a story about the Mary Celeste. His fictional account, filled with dramatic embellishments, captures the public's fascination. Doyle's story spreads the mystery worldwide. He changes details, adds fictional elements, and even misspells the ship's name as Mary Celeste. But his dramatic tale ensures the ghost ship will never be forgotten. The Mary Celeste herself continues sailing under different owners. But her reputation as a cursed vessel follows her like a dark shadow. Sailors whisper her name in fear. 1885. The curse strikes again. The Mary Celeste's final captain deliberately wrecks her on a coral reef off Haiti, attempting insurance fraud. Even in death, she attracts criminal conspiracy. The fraud is discovered. The captain and his first mate are convicted of what was then called barratry. The Mary Celeste's criminal career ends in the courts of justice. But what really happened to Captain Briggs and his family? What drove 10 people to abandon a perfectly good ship and disappear into the Atlantic's hungry depths? Over the years, theories multiply like storm clouds. Sea monsters rise from the depths to claim the crew. Giant squids wrap their tentacles around the ship. Underwater earthquakes open the ocean floor. Waterspouts twist down from the sky, creating supernatural forces that lift crews from their decks. Pirates attack without taking any treasure. Mutineers murder without leaving any evidence. But the most compelling theories focus on the ship's deadly cargo. 1,700 barrels of denatured alcohol, highly flammable, constantly releasing invisible vapors into the ship's hold. In the 21st century, Dr. Andrea Sella of University College London decides to test this theory. He builds a replica of the Mary Celeste cargo hold. Using butane gas to simulate alcohol vapors, Dr. Sella creates a controlled explosion. The results are spectacular and terrifying. A massive ball of flame erupts upward, blowing open the hatches. But here is the crucial discovery. The explosion leaves no burn marks, no scorch damage, no evidence of fire. It is a pressure wave of pure terror that would convince any captain to abandon ship immediately. Imagine Captain Briggs below deck when the explosion occurs. The hatches blow open with a thunderous roar. Flames shoot skyward. The ship seems about to disintegrate beneath his feet. He rushes to the deck, shouting orders to abandon ship. His wife clutches their daughter as they prepare the lifeboat. The crew works frantically, believing their ship is about to explode. They lower the lifeboat and climb aboard. Captain Briggs grabs the ship's papers and navigation instruments. They tie a rope to the Mary Celeste, planning to return when the danger passes. But the Atlantic has other plans. The wind picks up. The waves grow larger. The Mary Celeste begins to pull away from the small lifeboat, straining the rope that connects them. In a moment of panic, someone cuts the rope. Perhaps they fear being dragged under if the ship explodes. Perhaps the rope breaks under the tremendous strain. Either way, the connection is severed. The Mary Celeste sails away under her own power, still seaworthy, still carrying her valuable cargo. But the 10 souls in the lifeboat are now alone in the vast Atlantic. Their small boat is no match for the winter storms. Captain Briggs, an experienced navigator, tries to reach the Azores, but the islands are over 100 miles away through treacherous waters. Hours pass, then days. The lifeboat fights against wind and wave, but the Atlantic is relentless. One by one, the occupants succumb to exposure, dehydration, and despair. Sarah Briggs holds her daughter close, trying to shield the child from the spray and cold. But the ocean claims its victims without mercy. Little Sophia is the first to slip beneath the waves. Captain Briggs watches helplessly as his family and crew disappear into the depths. The man who had commanded ships across the world's oceans becomes just another victim of the sea's endless hunger. The lifeboat itself eventually sinks or breaks apart, scattering its tragic cargo across the Atlantic floor. No trace of the 10 souls is ever found. Meanwhile, the Mary Celeste sails on like a ship of the dead. Her rigging damaged by the explosion, her course erratic, but her hull still sound. She becomes a true ghost ship. For 9 days, she wanders the Atlantic without human guidance. The wind and current carry her westward, away from her intended destination, toward her eventual discovery. When Captain Morehouse finds her, the Mary Celeste is still under partial sail. Her automatic steering system, damaged by the explosion, keeps her moving through the water like a sleepwalker. The water in her hold comes from the storm damage and normal seepage. The disassembled pump shows the crew's desperate attempt to reduce the alcohol fumes before the explosion occurred. The missing ship's papers and navigation instruments went down with the lifeboat. Captain Briggs had taken them for the journey to shore, following proper maritime procedure. Every piece of evidence fits this tragic puzzle. The explosion theory explains the sudden abandonment, the missing lifeboat, the intact cargo, and the absence of any crew or passengers. But other theories persist. Some investigators believe the crew was overwhelmed by alcohol fumes, becoming confused and disoriented before making the fatal decision to abandon ship. Others suggest that faulty navigation equipment led Captain Briggs to believe his ship was sinking. The damaged pump and rising water might have convinced him that abandonment was the only option. A seaquake theory proposes that underwater earthquakes created strange currents and pressure changes that made the ship appear to be in mortal danger when it was actually safe. Waterspouts, those terrifying tornadoes of the sea, might have threatened the Mary Celeste. These spinning columns of wind and water can appear suddenly and disappear just as quickly. But the most haunting possibility is simple human error. Perhaps the lifeboat rope was not properly secured. Perhaps a moment of clumsiness in rough seas led to the greatest maritime mystery of all time. The Mary Celeste herself becomes a celebrity. Newspapers around the world carry her story. Books are written, movies are made, documentaries are filmed. Her fame spreads like wildfire. She sails for 13 more years under various owners. But her reputation as a cursed ship makes her difficult to sell. Sailors refuse to sign on for voyages aboard the infamous ghost ship. Insurance companies charge higher premiums. Cargo owners become nervous. The Mary Celeste, once a profitable merchant vessel, becomes a financial burden. Her final voyage in 1885 is a deliberately criminal act. Captain Gilman Parker loads her with worthless cargo but insures it for $30,000, a fortune at the time. Parker steers the Mary Celeste onto the Rochelois Reef off Haiti. He expects her to sink quickly, destroying the evidence of his fraud. But the stubborn ship refuses to cooperate. The Mary Celeste hangs on the coral, her hull torn open but her cargo hold exposed to the air. Insurance investigators arrive to find cat food and rubber boots instead of valuable goods. Parker and his first mate are arrested, tried, and convicted of maritime fraud. The Mary Celeste has claimed her final victims, not through supernatural curse, but through human greed. The wreck of the Mary Celeste rests on the reef for over a century. Hurricanes and storms gradually break her apart, scattering her remains across the Caribbean floor. In 2001, author Clive Cussler funds an expedition to locate the final resting place of the famous ghost ship. Modern technology succeeds where previous searches had failed. Divers descend to the coral reef and find the scattered remains of the Mary Celeste. Pieces of wood, metal fittings, and other artifacts are brought to the surface after more than a century underwater. The physical mystery of the Mary Celeste is finally solved, but the human mystery endures. What happened to Captain Briggs, his family, and his crew remains one of the sea's darkest secrets. Modern forensic techniques and scientific analysis have eliminated many of the wilder theories. No sea monsters, no paranormal intervention, no supernatural curses. Just human beings facing the ocean's merciless power. The Mary Celeste teaches us that the ocean keeps its secrets. 10 people stepped off a ship into a small boat and vanished as completely as if they had never existed. Their bodies were never found. No wreckage from their lifeboat was ever discovered. The Atlantic swallowed them whole and kept their location secret for over 150 years. The story of the Mary Celeste reminds us that the age of sail was filled with danger. Every voyage was a gamble with death. Every storm could be a ship's last. Every decision could mean survival or disaster. Captain Benjamin Briggs made what he thought was the right choice. Faced with apparent catastrophe, he chose to save his family and crew. Instead, he led them all to their deaths. The Mary Celeste herself survived longer than any of the humans who sailed aboard her. She became more famous in abandonment than she ever was as a working merchant ship. Her story has inspired countless books, movies, documentaries, and investigations. She has become the most famous ghost ship in maritime history, her name synonymous with mystery and disappearance. Even today, over 150 years later, new theories continue to emerge. Scientists, historians, and amateur investigators propose fresh explanations for the ancient mystery. But perhaps the greatest mystery is not what happened to the crew, but why their story continues to captivate us. What is it about the Mary Celeste that refuses to let us forget? Maybe it is because the Mary Celeste represents our deepest fears about the ocean. The fear of being alone on the vast waters. The fear of making the wrong decision. The fear of disappearing without a trace. Or perhaps it is because the story shows how quickly life can change. One moment, 10 people were safely aboard a sturdy ship. The next moment, they were gone forever. The Mary Celeste reminds us that even in our modern world of GPS and satellite communication, the ocean remains a dangerous and unpredictable place. Ships still disappear, crews still vanish. But the story also shows human resilience and determination. Captain Morehouse could have sailed past the abandoned ship. Instead, he chose to investigate, to help, to solve the mystery. The investigators at Gibraltar refused to accept easy answers. They examined every piece of evidence, tested every theory, sought the truth even when it remained elusive. Dr. Sella's modern experiment shows that science can still shed new light on old mysteries. What seemed impossible in 1872 becomes possible with 21st century knowledge. The discovery of the wreck by Clive Cussler's team proves that no mystery is truly unsolvable. Given enough time, dedication, and technology, even the ocean's deepest secrets can be revealed. So what really happened aboard the Mary Celeste on that November day in 1872? The most likely explanation combines multiple factors into a perfect storm of tragedy. The leaking alcohol barrels created dangerous fumes in the cargo hold. The rough weather made the ship difficult to handle. The damaged pump increased the water in the bilge. When the alcohol vapors exploded, Captain Briggs faced what appeared to be imminent disaster. The explosion, though leaving no permanent damage, convinced him that his ship was about to be destroyed. His decision to abandon ship was reasonable given the information he had. A responsible captain and father, he chose what he believed was the safest course for his family and crew. The tragedy occurred when they lost contact with the Mary Celeste. Whether the rope broke or was cut, the result was the same. 10 people were left alone in a small boat on the hostile Atlantic. Their fate was sealed by the ocean's merciless power. No amount of skill or experience could save them from the winter storms and the vast distances to safety. The Mary Celeste, meanwhile, continued sailing under the automatic control of her steering system. Damaged but seaworthy, she became a ghost ship by accident, not by supernatural intervention. This explanation accounts for all the evidence found when the ship was discovered. The missing lifeboat, the scattered papers, the damaged rigging, the water in the hold. It also explains why no trace of the crew was ever found. The Atlantic Ocean is vast beyond imagination. A small boat and 10 people would disappear without leaving any recoverable evidence. But even this most logical explanation cannot be proven beyond doubt. The ocean has kept its secrets for over 150 years, and it shows no signs of surrendering them now. The Mary Celeste remains the ultimate maritime mystery, a ghost ship that continues to sail through our imagination long after her physical remains have been scattered by Caribbean storms. She reminds us that the ocean is still master of human destiny. Despite all our technology and knowledge, we remain small and vulnerable when facing the sea's awesome power. The story of Captain Briggs and his family touches our hearts because it could happen to any of us. Good people making reasonable decisions can still face tragic consequences. Little Sophia Briggs, only 2 years old, represents the innocent victims of the sea's hunger. Her toys scattered in the empty cabin remind us that the ocean shows no mercy for age or innocence. Sarah Briggs, a devoted wife and mother, chose to accompany her husband on what should have been a routine voyage. Her loyalty and love led her to a watery grave in the Atlantic depths. The 7 crew members, experienced sailors all, trusted their captain's judgment and followed him into the lifeboat. Their faith in authority became their doom. Captain Benjamin Briggs himself becomes a tragic figure, a man who spent his life mastering the sea, only to be defeated by a single moment of crisis and miscalculation. Their story has been told countless times, but it never loses its power to move us. Each retelling adds new details, new theories, new attempts to understand the incomprehensible. The Mary Celeste has become more than just a ship. She has become a symbol of mystery itself. Her name is spoken whenever something disappears without explanation. From the Bermuda Triangle to missing aircraft, from vanished explorers to unexplained phenomena, the Mary Celeste serves as the template for all mysterious disappearances. Her influence extends beyond maritime history into popular culture. Movies, books, television shows, and documentaries continue to explore her story for new audiences. Each generation discovers the Mary Celeste anew, bringing fresh perspectives and modern knowledge to bear on the ancient mystery. The questions remain the same, but the potential answers evolve. Perhaps that is the true power of the Mary Celeste story. It reminds us that some mysteries are worth preserving. Some questions are more interesting than their answers. In our age of instant information and constant communication, the Mary Celeste represents a time when the ocean could still swallow ships and people without leaving digital traces. She reminds us that mystery still exists in our mapped and measured world. That despite all our knowledge, the ocean retains its power to surprise, to confound, and to claim. The Mary Celeste sails on through our collective imagination, her empty decks and silent rigging a permanent reminder that some stories have no ending. Captain Briggs, Sarah, Little Sophia, and the 7 crew members have achieved a kind of immortality through their mysterious disappearance. They are remembered not for their lives, but for the manner of their vanishing. Their story will continue to be told as long as humans sail the oceans and wonder about the mysteries beneath the waves. The Mary Celeste has earned her place in the pantheon of maritime legend. Let us analyze the evidence one final time. We have a seaworthy ship abandoned without clear cause. We have missing people who left no trace of their fate. We have theories, but no definitive answers. The alcohol explosion theory explains the sudden abandonment. The rough weather explains the separation from the lifeboat. The vast ocean explains why no trace was ever found. But we cannot prove this theory beyond doubt. We cannot interview the witnesses. We cannot examine the crime scene. The evidence has been scattered by time and tide. What we can say with certainty is that 10 human beings faced a moment of crisis and made a decision that cost them their lives. They chose what they thought was safety and instead found death. Their decision to abandon the Mary Celeste was rational given their circumstances. The ship appeared to be in mortal danger. A responsible captain would evacuate his crew and passengers. The tragedy lies not in their decision, but in its consequences. The Mary Celeste was actually safe. The explosion was spectacular but not destructive. They died trying to survive. This is perhaps the most haunting aspect of the Mary Celeste mystery. If Captain Briggs had stayed aboard his ship, all 10 people would likely have survived to reach Genoa safely. Instead, their names are remembered only in connection with one of history's greatest maritime mysteries. They have become symbols of the unknown rather than individuals with hopes and dreams. But perhaps that is fitting. The ocean has always been a place where individuals become legends, where personal stories merge with eternal mysteries, where the line between fact and myth becomes blurred. The Mary Celeste represents the ultimate maritime mystery because it combines all the elements that fascinate us about the sea: danger, mystery, tragedy, and the eternal question of what lies beneath the waves. Her story reminds us that despite all our advances in navigation, communication, and safety equipment, the fundamental relationship between humans and the ocean remains unchanged. We are still visitors in an alien realm. The Mary Celeste will continue to sail through our imagination as long as humans venture onto the ocean. Her empty decks and silent rigging serve as a permanent reminder of our mortality and vulnerability. She teaches us that some questions may never be answered, some mysteries may never be solved, and some stories may never have endings. Sometimes the journey is more important than the destination. In the end, the Mary Celeste mystery endures because it speaks to something deep in the human spirit. Our need to explore, to question, to seek answers even when none may exist. Captain Benjamin Briggs, Sarah, Sophia, and the 7 crew members may have vanished from the physical world, but they live on in our questions, our theories, and our endless fascination with their fate. The Mary Celeste sails on, her mystery intact, her story unfinished, her questions unanswered. She has become the ghost ship that haunts not just the ocean, but our collective memory. And perhaps that is exactly as it should be. Some stories are too powerful to be solved, too mysterious to be explained, too important to be forgotten. The Mary Celeste is one of them. If you enjoyed unraveling this mystery, like and subscribe to Sherlock Mode.